Hi there, and welcome to this final episode of the Coronavirus Focus with myself, Ed Gill, Radfield Home Care's franchise recruitment manager, and our co-founder and franchisor, Dr. Hannah MacKechnie. So in today's episode, we're going to be discussing what the future holds for the home care marketplace and what changes will need to be made in the medium and long term, given the recent pandemic that we've all been experiencing. So Hannah, with lockdown starting to ease, shops reopening, society starting to come back to some sort of normal, one of the most perhaps topical changes that may occur in the coming weeks and months is the recruitment of care staff and how that might be impacted. Are you able to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, sure. I mean, in a previous episode we discussed carer recruitment and the impact coronavirus has had. I think now, as we've sort of moved through the different stages of the pandemic, and we're by no means through the pandemic, but what we've seen is obviously lockdown easing and, you know, life is trying to get back to some kind of new normal. What we are seeing is really sort of what we anticipated would happen. So we had an initial massive influx, I would say, in terms of interest in carer jobs as people were obviously prior to the furlough scheme being announced, so people were worried about their jobs and being made redundant initially at the start of the pandemic. And then that sort of tended to settle down a little bit. We've still had, I would say, increased levels of recruitment. However, now as the furlough scheme is drawing towards an end, we are seeing that interest just climb up again, and we're anticipating that as more redundancies come through, that demand is going to increase again and really sort of hit a new level. That's really what we're anticipating. I think then what we'll see is there's been a lot more focus on the care sector. So I think a lot more people are aware, specifically around home care. The general public are very aware of care homes, but home care has always been like the poor cousin that nobody has really known about. So actually having a lot of media coverage around home care and carers visiting people at home, it's put a big focus on our sector, which I think will help people identify that actually that's a job that they could see themselves doing, and then enables them to move from different sectors such as hospitality industry or different other manufacturing jobs that maybe are under threat, into a much more secure workplace really.
Okay. And as you mentioned there, with the furlough scheme coming towards an end, potentially creating a lot of redundancies and talk of a potential recession in the weeks and months ahead as well, in many ways it's almost going to be a rerun of when you launched the business back in 2008. Do you mind touching on what you experienced firsthand back then when there was sort of financial difficulties in society?
Yeah, sure. We launched the business in early 2008. So really, as that sort of financial crisis, recession was starting to really sort of bite. And what we found was that operating in the care sector was actually very resilient. So we didn't really see an impact on the business at all. We grew sustainably and very healthily through that first year of trading when we launched in 2008. So what we're seeing now is obviously similar recession that's looming. I think it's going to be deeper recession than we've seen in sort of living memory. So really it's the care sector is one of those industries that is very resilient, because it's for most people it's a need, not a want. It's something that people have to be able to maintain quality of life or to remain safe and well. So actually, that provides a lot of security for people entering the sector, be it for employment opportunities or franchise partners coming into the network, looking at securing their own future through setting up their own business.
Okay, brilliant. And what about clients then, and providing care for clients in a safe way? How do you think that will be impacted in the months ahead?
I don't really see a significant change, to be honest. I think what we do at the moment is we provide very high quality care, and that's what all our franchise partners are focused on, and our carers are recruited on that basis to make sure that our clients' needs are exceeded, and that they're supported to live a full life as to the best of their abilities, really. So that's something that the fundamental core elements of the care that we provide, I don't think will change. Obviously, we've touched quite a lot on PPE, the requirements there that have made that sort of client-carer interface a little bit more challenging because you've got physical barriers, whereas before we didn't. So that's been probably, from our clients' perspective, maybe a little bit of a change that they've had to get used to because there's no way around it, unfortunately. But those sorts of things really I don't think will change significantly. I think in the sector we'll see a greater use of technology. We've always been very keen on adopting technology early, so we use a lot of technology in our day-to-day care provision between us as a franchisor and our franchise partners as well. So the technology side, I think we're definitely well ahead of the curve on, but I think what we're going to see is a lot of other home care providers starting to take steps towards introducing some technology solutions into their businesses. So I think as a sector, we'll see the use of technology gain some traction, which is great for the sector. Definitely.
And what about individuals who are considering home care services? Do you think they will be reluctant to have home carers visit them in their own homes and that risk of potential infection? Or do you think, obviously care homes have been hit very hard, do you think that will generate an opposite effect and actually we'll see an increase in inquiries from new individuals?
I think based on what's happened through the pandemic is really probably the best guide that we can use to actually look at what we see is likely to happen moving forward. Initially we saw a bit of quite a few of our clients who were maybe having low-level care needs decide to maybe pause care for a while, and actually in some cases we encouraged them to, because we didn't know quite how the lie of the land was going to be. So we needed to kind of make sure that we had sufficient services if carers were going off sick, that we would still have the ability to look after our clients with greater needs. But what we've seen actually as the pandemic sort of we've moved through the different stages is that those clients who decided to pause care initially have all come back. Pretty much, not every single one, but the majority have wanted that care because they value it and they value the companionship, they value getting out and about, those sorts of care needs. So, and then really we haven't seen a tailing off in inquiries. So it's been really overall it's been pretty steady, and actually in lots of cases it's actually escalated, and a lot of our network have grown beyond their projections. So I think probably what we'll see moving to the future is there is going to be more of a focus on home care as opposed to care homes, and the extension with that is also live-in care. So I think people will choose to maybe, instead of going into a care home, remain in their own home but have increased amount of care that can extend right through to care around the clock, having a live-in carer. So I think we'll see that sector, that part of the care sector increase as well.
Okay. Now, one thing that has become very apparent for all sectors because of coronavirus is the risk and the unknown that coronavirus has presented over recent months. As a result of that, what's happened, or what do you think will happen moving forward in terms of business insurance for care providers?
Yeah, we've had sort of early indicators really from our insurers that the insurance marketplace is obviously spooked by coronavirus. I think that's probably a bit of an understatement, to be fair. So there's certainly some big changes that are going to be happening within the care insurance marketplace. It's already a fairly narrow field. There's not that many insurers that will insure home care businesses. And what the early indications are that they're going to be looking very much around the quality standards of that business. So in order to be able to secure insurance, you're going to have to demonstrate that you have got the ability to operate to a high standard, which is very difficult for individual businesses setting up for the first time. They've got no track record, they've got no trading history, they've got no CQC rating. So therefore, for those individual businesses, standalone businesses, it's going to be increasingly hard to obtain insurance, and obviously if they can, it's going to be incredibly expensive.
Okay.
So what we're seeing is really being part of a franchise network, because we can demonstrate quality standards across the network that will help the insurers, allow them to be able to offer that insurance even to new entrants into the network, because they've got an assurance that the quality standards are already going to be managed and then will be met with those new entrants.
Okay, interesting. So in effect then, a franchise will offer another benefit in that sense, that actually that group policy, if you will, for want of a better phrase, will provide insurers with the confidence to cover new providers under the franchise umbrella, whereas if they went on their own, that might not be the case and they may struggle.
Absolutely, that's certainly the indications that we're getting from the insurance sector at this stage,
Okay. Now, a lot of people who are looking to launch a home care business often turn to banks and to lenders to help them with that initial investment to get the business up and running and that working capital for the first few months. Has there been any word from banks about how they're supporting individuals looking to launch a business?
Yeah, I mean, through the pandemic, banks have obviously had to analyse their own risk and, ensure that their lending is as safe as can be. So they've been doing a lot of work internally to ensure when they can lend and who they can lend to. So what we've tended to see, that there has been a bit of a pause with all of the major banks through the peak of the pandemic, in that they haven't been lending as they normally would. However, now as lockdown's easing, we're starting to see that those banks are starting to lend again. It's not necessarily back to how it was pre-coronavirus yet. Hopefully we will see the lending criteria open up so that we can get back to pre-corona levels. But there certainly are banks out there at the moment lending, which is really encouraging to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that gives you all some understanding and confidence of what the sector will look like in the future, and that actually the home care sector is maybe not going to be quite as negatively impacted as some other industries out there. And it really highlights that actually coronavirus in some ways will support of the home care sector and make it a really opportunity to create your own business in a resilient sector. But thank you for watching over the last few weeks. Hopefully you've got a lot from the coronavirus focus. If you do have any other questions, please do get in touch. I'll be happy to have a chat with you, and equally so will Hannah. Answer any other questions you have about coronavirus, the sector, or indeed if you're interested in learning more about launching your own Radfield home care franchise. But join us again in the coming weeks when we'll be looking at other topics and how that will impact the home care marketplace currently and in the weeks ahead as well. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.